Hello, and welcome back to Now Read This. I am your host. So thank you for your patience as I've been out for about a month. There's been amazing things happening in life, and I'm very excited for the future, and I'm very tired as well. And I'll probably share a bit more about that in all of the things that have been happening on the channel soon. But I want to get back to regular uploading as well as reading. And thank you all for your continued support of the channel and for your suggestions about what to read next. There were a few that I really am considering strongly. Namely, there's one, The Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. That book in the series I've read recently, and I was really surprised at how I just had never gotten into it before. So anyway, thank you very much for all of your suggestions for the next books to read. However, we're going to do The Story of King Arthur and His Knights by Howard Pyle. I found this book when I was about 8, I'm going to say, at the library, and I've just loved it ever since. I usually read it probably like once every 2 years or so, and it really affected me deeply. It's one of the main reasons I like Old English. It's written in sort of a King James version of the Bible style, so lots of these and thous and wherefores and things like that. So I'm not sure how many people on the channel will really enjoy it, but if I enjoy it, then that's all that really matters, right? Because if I enjoy it, then you're bound to enjoy some of it at the very least. So Howard Pyle, I believe, wrote this probably in early 1900s. It's hard to believe that's more than 100 years ago now. People were so much smarter back then. So again, without further ado, the story of King Arthur and his knights. There are several, he's a very phenomenal illustrator. So I would suggest going and seeing a few of his drawings as well. And there are names and probably pronunciations of things that I will butcher at some level, just because I've never read this out loud. So there's a foreword here. I'll read this briefly for you, and then we'll hop in directly. So the foreword. After several years of contemplation and of thought upon the matter herein contained, it has at last come about, by the grace of God, that I have been able to write this work with such pleasure of spirit, that if it gives to you but a part of the joy that it hath afforded me, I shall be very well content with what I have done. For when, in pursuing this history, I have come to consider the high nobility of spirit that moved these excellent men to act as they did, I have felt that they have afforded such a perfect example of courage and humility that anyone might do exceedingly well to follow after their manner of behavior in such manner as he is able to do. For I believe that King Arthur was the most honourable, gentle knight who ever lived in all the world, and those who were his fellows of the Round Table, taking him as their looking-glass of chivalry, made altogether such a company of noble knights that it is hardly to be supposed that their like will ever be seen again in this world. Wherefore it is that I have had such extraordinary pleasure in beholding how these famous knights behaved whenever circumstances called upon them to perform their endeavour. So, in the year of grace 1902, I began to write this history of King Arthur and his knights of the Round Table. And if I am able so to do, I shall endeavour, with love of that task, to finish the same at some other time in another book, and to the satisfaction whosoever may care to read that story thereof. Prologue. In ancient days there lived a very noble king named Uther Pendragon, and he became overlord of all of Britain. This king was very greatly aided unto the achievement of the Pendragonship of the realm by the help of 2 men who rendered him great assistance in all that he did. The one of these men was a certain very powerful enchanter and sometime prophet, known to men as Merlin the Wise, and he gave very good counsel unto Uther Pendragon. The other man was an excellent noble and renowned knight, hight Ulfius, who was thought by many to be the greatest leader in war of any man then alive. And he gave Uther Pendragon aid and advice in battle. So, with the help of Merlin and Sir Ulfius, Uther Pendragon was able to overcome all of his enemies and to become king of the entire realm. After Uther Pendragon had ruled his kingdom for a number of years, he took to wife a certain beautiful and gentle lady, hight Igraine. This noble dame was the widow of Gerlois, the Duke of Tintagel, by which prince she had 2 daughters, one of whom was named Margase, and the other Morgana le Fay. And Morgana le Fay was a famous sorceress. These daughters the queen brought with her to the court of Uther Pendragon after she had married that puissant king, and there Margase was wedded to King Urien of Gore, and Morgana le Fay was wedded to King Lot of Orkney. Now after a while, Uther Pendragon and Queen Igraine had a son born unto them, and he was very beautiful, and of great size and strength of bone. And whilst the child still lay wrapped in his swaddling clothes, and lying in a cradle of gold and ultramarine, Merlin came to Uther Pendragon with a spirit of prophecy strong upon him, for such was often the case with him. And speaking in that spirit of prophecy, he said, "Lord, it is given unto me to foresee that thou shalt surely fall sick of a fever, and that thou shalt maybe die of a violent sweat that will follow thereon. Now should such a dolorous thing befall us all, this young child, who is, certes, the hope of all this realm, will be in very great danger of his life. For many enemies will assuredly rise up with design to seize upon him for the sake of his inheritance, and either he will be slain, or else he will be held in captivity, from which he shall hardly hope to escape. Wherefore, I do beseech thee, Lord, that thou wilt permit Sir Ulfius and myself presently convey the child away unto some place of safe refuge, where he may be hidden in secret until he groweth to manhood, and is able to guard himself from such dangers as may threaten him." When Merlin had made an end of speaking thus, Uther Pendragon made reply with a very steadfast countenance in this wise: "Merlin, so far as my death is concerned, when my time cometh to die, I believe God will give me grace to meet my end with entire cheerfulness. For certes, my lot is in that wise no different from that of any other man who hath been born of woman. But touching the matter of this young child, if thy prophecy be true, then his danger is very great, and it would be well that he should be conveyed hence to some place of safe harbourage, as thou dost advise. Wherefore I pray thee to perform thy will in this affair, bearing in thy heart the consideration that the child is the most precious inheritance which I shall leave unto this land." All this, as was said, Uther Pendragon spake with great calmness and equanimity of spirit, and Merlin did as he had advised, and he and Sir Ulfius conveyed the child away by night, and no one but they wist whether the babe had been taken. And shortly afterward, Uther Pendragon was seized with the sickness as Merlin had foretold, and he died exactly as Merlin had feared that he would die. Wherefore it was very well that the child had been taken to a place of safety. And after Uther Pendragon had departed from this life, it was likewise as Merlin had feared, for all the realm fell into great disorder. For each lesser king contended against his fellow for overlordship, and wicked knights and barons harried the highways as they listed, and there levied toll with great cruelty upon helpless wayfarers. For some such travellers they took prisoners and held for ransom, whilst others they slew because they had no ransom to pay. So it was a very common sight to see a dead man lying by the roadside, if you should venture to make a journey upon some business or other. Thus it befell that after a while all that dolorous land groaned with the trouble that lay upon it. Thus there passed nearly 18 years in such great affliction, and then one day the Archbishop of Canterbury summoned Merlin to him, and bespake him in this wise: "Merlin, men say that thou art the wisest man in all the world. canst thou not find some means to heal the distractions of this woeful realm? Bend thou thy wisdom to this matter, and choose thou a king who shall be a fit overlord for us, so that we may enjoy happiness of life once more, as we did in the days of Uther Pendragon." Then Merlin lifted up his countenance upon the archbishop, and spake in this wise: "My lord, the spirit of prophecy that lieth upon me sometimes moveth me now to say that I do perceive that this country is soon to have a king who shall be wiser and greater and more worthy of praise than was even Uther Pendragon, and he shall bring order and peace where is now disorder and war. Moreover, I may tell you that this king shall be of Uther Pendragon's own full blood royal." To this the archbishop said, "What thou tellest me, Merlin, is a wonderfully strange thing. But in this spirit of prophecy, canst thou not foretell when this king is to come? And canst thou tell how we shall know him when he appeareth among us? For many lesser kings there are who would fain be overlord of this land, and many such there are who deem themselves fit to rule over all the others. How then shall we know the real king from those who may proclaim themselves to be the rightful king?" "My lord archbishop," quoth Merlin, "if I have thy leave for to exert my magic, I shall set an adventure which, if any man achieve it, all the world shall straightway know that he is the rightful king and overlord of this realm." And to this the archbishop said, "Merlin, I bid thee do whatsoever may seem to thee to be right in this affair." And Merlin said, "I will do so." So Merlin caused by magic that a huge marble stone, 4 square, should suddenly appear in an open place before the cathedral door. And upon this block of marble he caused it to be that there shall stand an anvil, and into the anvil he caused it that there shall be thrust a great naked sword, midway deep of the blade. And this sword was the most wonderful thing that any man had ever seen, for the blade was of blue steel and extraordinarily bright and glistening. And the hilt was of gold, chased and carved with marvellous cunning, and inlaid with a great number of precious stones, so that it shone with wonderful brightness in the sunlight. And about the sword were written these words in letters of gold: "Whoso pulleth out this sword from the anvil, that same is rightwise king born of England." So a great many people came and gazed upon that sword and marvelled at it exceedingly, for its like had never before been beheld upon the earth. Then, when Merlin had accomplished this miracle, he bade the archbishop to call together all the chief people of that land upon Christmas tide, and he bade the archbishop to command that every man should make assay to draw out that sword, for that he who should succeed in drawing it forth out of the anvil should be rightwise king of Britain. So the archbishop did, according as Merlin said, and this was the marvel of the marble stone and the anvil, of which same any one may easily read for himself in that book written a very long while ago by Robert de Boron, which is called Le Roman de Merlin. Now, when the mandate of the Lord Archbishop went forth, summoning all the chief people of the land to the assay of that miracle, for indeed it was a miracle to draw forth a sword blade out of an anvil of solid iron, all the realm became immediately cast into a great ferment, so that each man asked his fellow, "Who shall draw forth that sword, and who shall be our king?" Some thought it would be King Lot, and others thought it would be King Urien of Gore, these being the sons-in-law unto Uther Pendragon. Some thought that it would be King Leodegrance of Cameliard, and others thought that it would be King Rience of North Wales. Some thought it would be this king, and others thought it would be that king. For all the world was divided into different parties who thought according to their liking. Then, as Christmas-tide drew nigh, it presently appeared as though the entire world was wending its way to London town, for the highways and the byways became filled with wayfarers, kings and lords and knights and ladies and esquires and pages and men-at-arms, all betaking their way whither the essay was to be made of that adventure of the sword and the anvil. Every inn and castle was filled so full of travellers that it was a marvel how so many folk could be contained within their compass, and everywhere were tents and pavilions pitched along the wayside for the accommodation of those who could not find shelter within doors. But when the archbishop beheld the multitudes that were assembling, he said to Merlin, "Indeed, Merlin, it would be a very singular thing if among all these great kings and nobles, honourable lords, we should not find someone worthy of being the king of this realm." Unto which the Merlin smiled and said, "Marvel not, my lord, if among all those who appear to be so extraordinarily worthy, there shall not be found one who is worthy, and marvel not if, among all those who are unknown, there shall arise one who shall approve himself to be entirely worthy." And the archbishop pondered Merlin's words, and so beginneth this story. So as you can see, I've really sort of got to work on all the language. It's complex and a bit challenging, but that's the prologue and the foreword, and we shall continue on with chapter 1 and 2 this week and continue on. So I may start reading more than one book at a time. We'll see. But thank you again for joining me on Now Read This. I hope you enjoy this story as it goes along. And much love, and may the good blood guide your way. Farewell. Hi, you want to buy something? You can check the description for my books and audiobooks. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.